Week 8 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few kickers I looked at on the waiver wire this week. The first guy, Will Lutz of the New Orleans Saints. I know I sound like a broken record the last 4 or 5 weeks here, but Will Lutz, he's still out there amazingly in 77% of fantasy leagues. So the last few games here, he knows nothing but putting up fantasy points. Week 5 versus Seattle, 9. Week 6 versus Cincinnati, 14. Week 7 at Arizona, 11. And Week 8 here, another indoor game versus the Las Vegas Raiders. So right now, Saints are not finishing a lot of drives in the end zone. Will Lutz is getting opportunities. And he's turned back the clock a little bit, just like he was a few years ago when Drew Brees was over there. And he was getting a lot of opportunities and putting them through the uprights. That's exactly what Lutz is doing. And right now, he's a top kicker once again to hit on the wire this week. The next kicker I looked at is Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks. So another kicker widely available in fantasy leagues. And he's putting up double digits each and every week, it seems like, is Meyer. Available right now in 68% of fantasy leagues. In the last few games here for him, Week 4 at Detroit, 14. Week 5 at New Orleans in that one, 10. Week 6 versus Arizona, 13. And Week 7 at the Chargers, 16. So right here, this Seahawks team gets a lot of possessions. They get in the red zone a decent amount of times. And Jason Myers, he's been money in the bank this season. And Week 8 here, another good matchup versus the New York Giants. I give up the 6th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. A bend but don't break type of defense. And this fits well with the way Myers has been kicking this season. So I definitely would give him an ad this week. The next guy, Greg Joseph of the Minnesota Vikings. So Joseph coming off bye week. And we know he's a kicker with a big boot. He proved it last season. He was solid for this Minnesota Viking team. But some reason this year, it's not all happening here for Joseph. I think with a week off and a bye week to recuperate, I think he could get the job done and can help fantasy owners. Right now, available in 82% of fantasy leagues. So the last few games here for Joseph, like I said, nothing to note. Week 4 in New Orleans, a great game, 18. But after that, Week 5 versus the Bears, 3. And Week 6 in Miami, 4. So right now, coming off the bye, pretty decent matchup versus Arizona. It's an indoor game, and I think Joseph will get things going. Last season, he was great. It could have been a fluke, no doubt. But right now, if you need a kicker where your kicker on bye or kicker struggling, I think Joseph is a decent ad this week. The next guy is Cade York of the Cleveland Browns. So Cade York, big boot in college football. And now it's starting to translate a little here in his rookie season in the NFL, even though I know he got one blocked in a crucial part in that Baltimore game in Week 7. But the last few weeks here, he's been serviceable. Is Cade York. Week 6 versus New England, 12 fantasy points. And Week 7 in Baltimore, 9. And next week here in Week 8 versus Cincinnati, an amazing matchup. They give up the most fantasy points to kickers on the season. So right now, Cade York available in 91% of fantasy leagues here. He's going to get opportunities, I think, versus Cincinnati. And if they want to keep close with them, is this Cleveland Brown team, they're going to have to put points up. So right now, he's a good ad this week, and he's getting it going as well as York. And the 5th and final kicker I looked at on the wire this week's Matt Gay of the Los Angeles Rams. So I said Gay was a drop last week. Not a guy to stash because obviously he's a kicker. I don't really want to stash kickers on their bye weeks. But now Matt Gay, he's back and ready to go here in Week 8 with a matchup versus the San Francisco 49ers where I could see this Niner team hold them out of the end zone. And they're going to have to settle for field goals just like in Week 4 where he had 9 fantasy points in that ball game as Matt Gay. So right now available in 65% of leagues here. He's still on an offense that could strike at any time. And Von Jefferson is coming back as well for this Los Angeles Ram offense. A deep threat to add to the lineup. And another pretty solid wide receiver. So Matt Gay could get opportunities. He's still in a pretty decent offense. And a kick I would add this week. So that's a few kickers I looked at on the waiver wire.
Of the fantasy football season.